So this movie was really good. Just a really, really good movie. And it wasn't even just like one aspect was better than the other. Although if I had to pick an aspect, I do believe I would like, or rather, I would like the characters more as a whole. Like, in consideration to the plot, the sounds, the music, all that good jazz, the animation, everything. I love the characters of this movie. The characters in this movie were so good because they were all horrible. Like they were all just horribly messed up individuals. And for some reason that is just like great to me. I don't know why. Flawed characters are like the best characters to me. Like people that are like horribly flawed and like find their way through it. My favorite character being Nagasuka. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Just that little guy. Basically the main character's best friend. He was phenomenal to me, even though he wasn't like on screen like a whole lot. But when he was, I wholeheartedly believe that it was great. Like he just stole the show completely. Um, and it was he. I mean, obviously he was on screen with the main character, the Ishida. Um, I mean, obviously because they were best friends. Ishida essentially Naga. I'm gonna call him Naga. He was about to get his bike jacked by like a school bully or whatever, and Ishida walked up and he was like, "Hey, you can have my bike." And then the dude took his bike, and then he came back after school and he was like, "Ugh, I just got jacked." And so he did his thing for the rest of the day, and Naga like showed up at his house with his bike, and he was like, "Hey, we're best friends from now on." So that was freaking amazing. Um, what other characters? Though the main girl, Nishimiya, I think. Shoka, I'll just call her Shoka. She was great. The deaf one, the deaf one. She deaf. Her character was good too, because I think out of all the characters, she was kind of the most flawed. Like not really the most flawed, but just her struggle was mad real. I loved it. And that's another thing about this movie that really just hit me. Like, whoops, that just hit me. Everything was just, it was just so. Not, I'm not gonna say it was like deep, like really made you think, like, oh, if I kill this guy, save 100 more. Like but it was deep. Like her disability, being deaf, she couldn't hear. It really added to the movie. Obviously, it was a main aspect of the movie. So if they messed that part up, then would have been bad. And her relationship with Ishida was great too because well, I guess you could say throughout the movie, Ishida is sort of doing this thing where he's trying to make her happy because in the past he sort of bullied her, and that's sort of the premise of the story. It's at when they were kids he bullied her, and now that they're grown up, he's trying to make amends for it. And so that relationship of him trying to appease her, and her being like, uh thanks. It's sort of because throughout she's putting on a false smile for the people around her, for the people who love her, like just smiling just to smile, like, hey, I'm okay. When everyone knows, like, hey, you're not okay. Stop pretending to be okay. But oh my goodness, the animation in this movie. Before I get too deep into the characters, the animation in this movie was so good. It was so good. It was just so sexy. It was, and I'm not like a technical sort of guy who knows like animations. Like I'm not gonna sit here and break down like animation techniques to you or anything, but like just from an observer looking at it, it was like so gorgeous. The colors were beautiful. The color were the the colors in this movie were beautiful. The set pieces, while there weren't a lot of set pieces, each one looked amazing. Like the main one, the bridge, oh, it looked beautiful. It looked beautiful because I mean, you got to see it at different times of the day, so it sort of added like a differentiation to the scene. It wasn't like, oh, sunny day, 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 nighttime, movie ends. It was they changed the day. It was like midday. I think one was dawn or something. I can't quite remember, but it was like after school or whatever, and then at night. So it really added like a change to the scene, and it. I mean, it's just great. It was great. and the music was also great. It was, I mean, the music was probably the least interesting part of the movie, to be completely honest. But that's not to take away from the music. Like, the music was great. But I think with everything else, like the story and the characters and the animation and like just the way it looked, it was so great that I was like, yo, this looks amazing. And you sort of forget that you're listening to a soundtrack behind it. But like when you really listen to the soundtrack, you're like, holy shit, this is really good. I guess the story. So I sort of explained the story a little bit. So the main premise is about this boy, Ishida. I think his name is actually Shoka Ishida, because they actually said that in the movie where like they had the same first name. Oh, Shoka-chan. But him and his friends, they basically start picking on this new girl, Shoko Nishimiya, I think. And she's obviously deaf, so they can't like hear her. Like at one point, he stands up. The teacher asks him to get up and has him read. And he's like, "La la la la," because she had just stood up. And you know, with deaf people, since they can't hear, like the way they talk, it's not as fluent. Or so I've seen in my life. It's not like absolutely fluid, like perfect. So he sort of pokes fun at that, and that's basically throughout her entire duration of being at that school. She eventually leaves. And then, this is all in the beginning, so it's sort of, I mean, it's kind of spoiler. So, she leaves, and the principal comes, and he's like, hey, yo, who's been picking on this girl? The mom said something. And what happens next is, like, my heart broke, but I was finally, because these kids are assholes. These kids are assholes, bro. They're so cruel. And that's really kids in general. Like, if I was to sit down in a room full of kids for, like, 4 hours, I'd probably come out and want to kill myself. Like, let's be honest here. But, anyway, back to the topic. The kids are just disgustingly cruel. Like, at one point, I think Ishida pulls out her hearing aid, and it cuts her on the ear, and she starts bleeding. I was like, Jesus Christ, my guy. Can you apologize, please? He doesn't. And so she leaves, and the principal's like, hey, who's been bullying her? And the teacher literally says, Ishida, stand up. We all know it was you. And I was like, oh, wow, great teaching. Because the teacher's pseudo kind of gets annoyed. Like, when she reads, he's just like, whatever, moving along. Like, he's not vibing with it either. And everyone just proceeds to sell out Ishida. And Ishida's like, yo, you all were in it too. Like, what is this? And everyone's like, no, not really. And so he gets shunned by everyone, basically. He then becomes the victim of the same bullying, and it's like, man, this is really, the karma here is real, but this is tragic. It was so tragic. Like, it was such a great scene of betrayal. I almost said horrible. Great scene of betrayal that it was ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, that was really stupid, great, dumb, good. So then we fast forward, and he meets Nishimiya again, and yeah, like I said, from there, they sort of start to build up this relationship of him trying to atone for what he's done in the past, but both of the characters are depressed, like extremely depressed. You find out that Ishida is depressed from his current life, where he's been shunned, and he just doesn't fit in that school. And then you find out that Nishimiya is depressed because of this disability she has. She thinks she's a burden on everyone, and you know how that goes. So they really build up this great relationship, and it's just so beautiful. It's just so even though like it's sort of at the back of your mind. And the thing that I love about this movie is that they use visual metaphors a lot. And I mean, I know that's kind of like typical in movies nowadays, but there's sort of a scene where they go on this sort of date after something happens to Nishimiya and her family. And they use the emphasis of distance, literally, where Ishida's walking yards in front of Nishimiya. Even when they're on the train and they get off, when they're standing there, it's not like they're both there, kind of. It's sort of like there's only a little bit of distance between them, but it's sort of the atmosphere that they've built. It sort of emphasizes that there's huge amounts of distance between them. So it was great how that's really it. It was great how they used that. And I'm saying and a lot. I should have scripted this. I was thinking about whether I should go into the script or not, and then I just was like, fuck it, whatever. We're just gonna do it raw. And this is the consequence of my actions, evidently. What else happened? Trying to think of, like, I want to think of negatives now. Like, negatives, there's some scenes in the movie, like, I think that the first act of the movie, first off, the prologue where they're in elementary school is phenomenal. That whole scene is phenomenal. Mind you, not much happens. Like, I basically told you what happens in the prologue, but it's phenomenal. It really sets up where Ishida is in the movie in the first act. Like, it really sets that up. You see why he's there. And I mean, in the first act, he also says, like, oh, I've been isolated, blah, blah, blah. But that prologue really gets you where you need to be for the rest of the movie. And it was phenomenal. Or at least I consider that the prologue. Yeah, I'm trying to think of negatives, but I can't. It's not that I can't find anything, but it's like nothing really in this movie like stood out as like just a overbearing negative mark. There were like some things here and there. I can't even think of anything. Like, this movie, to be completely honest with you, this movie was probably one of the best animated movies I've seen in a while. Like, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that just beats this for me. Like, this movie hit me deep, especially towards the end of the movie when, some certain things happen. I really, like, I actually started to tear up, and I think a tear actually fell, which is when it was deep, is when a tear falls. Like, you could tear up, and it's like, whatever, I'm not crying. But when a tear falls, it's like, I'm crying. I can't stop it. So, I mean, yeah, that's this movie. Out of everything, the animation, the characters, the story, the music, like I said, the music was sort of like a third fiddle to everything else, but that's only because everything else was so great. Like, I didn't really pay attention to the music too much. I was just too immersed in the story and the characters. Yeah, I mean, if I guess this is the end of the review. If I had to give this movie a rating, I would probably say it's like definitely 10 out of 10 for me. Yeah, definitely a 10 out of 10 would watch again. In fact, I'm probably going to go watch it again right after this. So that's it. See you guys later.